Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited today because I have Will Burgos on the phone. Say hello, Will.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And you may or may not be familiar with Will, but Will is the founder of Aether Tower, and he's based in Mexico, and they're based in Mexico, though they have a warehouse in Texas. And Aether Tower is doing a lot of interesting things. You started, and we're going to go through it, but you started with publishing board games or designing and making board games on Kickstarter with Tricksters, then doing some publishing. You're part of a board game cafe in Mexico, and you also do Mexico-friendly shipping for other Kickstarter creators, right? So a whole range of things. So to start, like I like to do in these videos, can you just give a little bit of the origin story narrative on how you got started and how you sort of became this lightning rod for gaming in Mexico?
Okay. Well, I have a friend who's my partner in Either Tower, and it was in a party after some beers when I said we should make a game, a company that create games, and we decided to go for it in December of 2014. We created Hero, and after 1 year, we launched the campaign. It was unsuccessful, and it was one of the biggest learning experiences and unsuccessful campaign.
But you tried again, right?
Yeah, and we decided to create a game in 3 months. I think we sent you a very bad prototype for Tricksters, but the campaign was successful. We manufactured in Mexico, and later we learned that the fulfillment for Mexico was very bad, like very high prices, and we are neighbors, United States and Mexico, so we're now doing fulfillment services. And after that, the board game industry in Mexico has been growing and growing, more interest in Kickstarter. We're organizing group pledges, and now Either Tower is a very well-established publisher in Mexico.
Yeah, so let's talk about all those things. So, right, the first time we interacted, right, was typical new Kickstarter creator or your second campaign reached out to me via whatever, my email or some site or on Facebook, sent along the game, and I'll just look, see if it seems interesting, if the rules are cool or whatever, and I say send it along, and I played it, and I did a video, and that campaign funded. And then there was this. It's shipped, right? It's gone to backers, correct?
Yeah, it's already fulfilled.
But what was super interesting to me was this transition you guys did to then sort of Mexico-friendly fulfillment. And for those who don't know, typically people are EU-friendly, maybe they're Australia. But when it comes to South America, when it comes to Mexico, generally speaking, it's just ship and deal with customs, and there's never really been a partner there. And I think from the States and perhaps from Europe, Mexico to date, and it's changing now, and I think you guys are a big part of it, hasn't, people talk about Brazil a lot as a place that sort of has a lot of backers that come through, also because shipping's a big problem to Brazil and other countries, but Mexico hasn't been that big of a group, but more and more, you see more and more backers and contributors from Mexico. So it's been a big shift. And so when you do a group pledge, you either help facilitate a group pledge in Mexico for a campaign, or you work directly with a publisher to handle the shipping of all of the games into Mexico, right?
Yeah, we make contact with the creator to ask for any group pledge advantages, maybe shipping or maybe other kind of discount. And we have a Facebook group only for Mexican backers, where each week we place the board game projects that we are organizing a group pledge, and it has responded pretty well, especially for large board games like Time of Legends, Joan of Arc, and the Seventh Continent.
No, it's a big deal. I mean, those group pledges are really big, and those are ones I typically see them out of France and out of Germany and those kinds of requests. But certainly, you guys are doing the bigger group pledges, and so you're starting to organize this. And if you're a creator, I definitely recommend reaching out to you guys? Is it what's if I'm a creator and I'm thinking about a group pledge for Mexico or Mexico friendly shipping, that kind of thing? What how should I find you? What's a good way to reach out to you?
Well, mail is always the easiest way. Email.
Yeah.
And Facebook on our Facebook page, we
And it's
also
just
have a good
Facebook,
content.
search Aether Tower and you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, and so but then so what's really interesting to me and I wanted to talk to you about is so you've sort of going through this transition. You're doing a little bit of everything. How did and it's so many interesting parts, right? It's working on a game and then just contributing and helping bring games into Mexico for Mexico gamers. How did the whole caravan, and I backed that campaign because I thought it was awesome. How did the whole board game cafe thing come together as well? Like, did you just meet up with a friend? Did they reach out to you? Like, can you tell that story a little bit?
Yeah, well, until November of the past year, Kickstarter was didn't allow Mexican creators to post a project. So when we launched our first project, it was with the help of a German cousin of mine. Then Mexico Kickstarter announced that they will open their doors to Mexican creators, and Tricksters was the first project funded from a Mexican creator. It funded in 6 hours, and that brought a lot of attention from all the other Mexicans in the board game industry. In fact, we didn't even make any buzz in Mexico for our campaign because we thought Mexico was not a big country in the board game scene,
Sure.
but we were wrong. It is growing a lot, but it is like underground. So a lot of people started to reach out for advice or to partner to check out their games, their campaigns. And it was another friend, Pepe, that is in another state or province from Mexico, who told us to visit his board game cafe, the Caravan, who was in another state. We went there and we thought it was great and talked a little more. And after some days, we decided to partner and bring the Caravan to Mexico City, the biggest city in Mexico. And now it is open. We're still working on the rewards. In fact, Pencil First game will be a pack on a table.
And just for those, basically, there were tiers on the campaign, and one of them was like, for a year or for some period of time, the starting game on a table is, your company, and like, yeah, there's like a plaque on the table that says like Pencil First supported or something like that. That's what I backed. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, thank you a lot for that.
No problem. It's cool.
And so now we have the board game cafe, and we have a bigger response because Mexico is like still the average citizen only knows games like Monopoly, Life, Guess Who, and when you have a board game cafe, you can show to them that you have games like Herbaceous or Catan,
Sure.
All the modern games. So it's still growing more, and the crowdfunding scene is growing more too. Now with the group pledge, more people is getting involved, and for our past campaign, Not Tricksters, another game campaign, we have over 100 Mexican backers. So
that's awesome, man. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a country that can offer as many backers as Australia, and there is the Australia-friendly shipping. So why shouldn't it have Mexico-friendly?
No. I mean, it's really, it's incredible shining a spotlight on that audience, right? I mean, part of it is the audience growing, but also creators getting comfortable. I mean, there weren't a lot of people doing EU-friendly or AU-friendly. Like, the more creators do it, the more it becomes a standard, the more people are engaged and learning about these markets. Also when it comes to localization, right? Like today, localization in Spanish isn't usually the first one you do, right? Usually you say, okay, let's do German, or let's do French, or let's do Italian or Polish. But more and more I'm hearing people look at and think about asking for Spanish translations in general. And I had done a Q&A, it was a little bit ago, maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago, with Sebas Cocina, who's a graphic designer, and he's based in Argentina,
Oh,
even further south, right?
yeah.
And, he was talking about how that board game scene had some of the same development and changes that you guys are seeing, as there were some homegrown, publishers and game creators using Kickstarter and getting engaged. Is the Caravan the only board game cafe in Mexico City, or are there other ones, or is that really the one?
There are stores which
Right.
offer some drinks, maybe, but it's not like a bigger space for. We can have 50 people at the same time playing, and the stores can have like 15, maybe.
Well,
So,
you're actually the first person I've spoken to who has worked with or on a cafe. I actually plan on doing this in this coming season, a bunch of Q&As with retailers. I want to actually get more into the scene. But when just for people who are listening, you know, is your cafe essentially a library where people can pick out games, and then there's tables? Is there food? Can you describe do they sell the games? Can you describe the atmosphere and the actual store location?
okay, well, the store location is near a park, and we offer a day pass. So people pay their pass, they can pick any game they want. A board game staff will make sure to teach you the game and maybe find the proper game for your group or your mood. And after that, they take order of your food, maybe a couple of beers, another beverage, and we also sell games there. We have the ones that people ask the most. But if you want almost any game, we contact Cupkey Hobby or ABC Distribution, and we get the game and sell it to you. And because the Board Game Cafe is working with us, the Aether Tower, all the Mexico-friendly campaigns or group pledges are delivered first in the caravan. So we teach the backers how to play the game. They can stay there and play a couple of rounds.
Oh, that's awesome. It's like an event.
Yeah, and if we order some retail copies of the Kickstarter, if the creator allows us, well, we also sell those copies because the event has been people has been very responsive to those events.
Well, let's talk about that. Actually, I think I haven't been to every cafe in the States. I've been to a lot of them. I don't know if I can think of anyone who's taken on the idea of doing a little bit of a day pass. That's an interesting way to build out, a service-oriented business where you have the trainers and the people there who are familiar and taking care of the tables and the games, and then you're also you're actually getting a day pass, or I assume people can get a week pass or a month pass or become members and be part of the cafe and all that. Had that model been in the other Caravan store, or was that a new model in the new location? How did you guys come up with that idea to do that kind of service package? Oh, did I lose you?
Oh,
you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. How did you? Because I've lived in Japan and I've been to Asia, and they have very much that library model where you're like checking in and you're paying a day pass, or you're paying for an hour, you're paying for a day, you're paying for whatever, and then you get free access to everything. I feel like in the States, most board game places don't do that, and it's just sort of a free library. But I imagine they'd love to have a little bit of a service fee to help for having the staff and clean tables and all that stuff. Did you guys come up with that idea in the Mexico City location, or had Pepe been doing it in the original location?
Sorry, because of the connection was lost.
I'm talking about the day pass.
Okay, so we have.
Did you come? I understand it, but did you come up with the idea in the Mexico City location, or was it in the original location?
Okay, that was in the original location, but for Tricksters, it happened something very epic. Our highest reward tier was Juan and my partner and me would fly to whatever country you are in, and we'll play Tricksters with you. We'll deliver Tricksters with you.
Jeez.
And there were some Canadian friends. What's on the Shelf is their channel. They are YouTubers. So they took that reward tire. We flew to Canada, and they took us to our first board game cafe, because there were no board game cafes other than the Caravan of the other state, which we didn't know at the time. And in that cafe in Canada, there was a day pass.
Oh, there was.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
maybe I just need to go to more. I guess I have a lot of board games here, but so yes, I guess maybe it's more common than I think it is.
Maybe in the United States, because there is like more people, a lot more people interested in board games. You don't have a day pass, but in Canada and Mexico, that it's still not as big as the United States. We need the day pass to keep growing our collection of games, and
Well, when I post this video, I'm going to ask people about that, if the ones near them do, and certainly if you're watching and you can comment, I'd love to know if your board game cafe has it. So if I have my own games, can I bring my own games with me, or is it only the games on site?
No, sure, you can bring your own games. In fact, there is a movement. There was before this cafe named Mexico on Board. It was a meetup that happened on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, where like 30 people gathered to play their own board games in some restaurants. And we also convinced them that the best place to play their games and our games is in the Caravan. So they can bring their own games or even pick the ones in the Caravan, but they are very used to bring their own games.
Cool. All right, so you've sort of done all these different things, right? You broke into the Kickstarter scene in Mexico. You're sort of being a Kickstarter advisor to people. You had the original games. You're helping other worldwide campaigns be Mexico friendly. You're feeding those games into your Caravan location. You're distributing them. You're building up a community around receiving the Kickstarters, learning them, and sharing them. All this cool stuff. Like, is this a sort of organic shifting thing, or like what? Do you have a business plan? Do you know what you're doing, or are you just having fun and sort of growing and expanding organically?
No, after Tricksters, we had a business plan.
Okay.
But first, we were like just doing everything. It was a common mistake. It is in Mexico that a game designer has a game, and the game designer is doing the job of the illustrator, of the publisher, of the manufacturer, of the distributor, and then we realized that it's I think bad maybe. Because you can't focus on the important thing, the design part. So we are offering with Aether Tower the possibility of publish your game. We're no longer making designs, maybe in our free time, but it's not our main goal. And the fulfillment partner is the other part that we are doing right now. We are about to hire more personnel, and Tricksters was manufactured in Mexico because we wanted to, like put
That's awesome.
And help our country with the money received instead of sending to China. So we also know how to produce card games. We still don't know much things about miniatures.
Sure. It's a lot of process there. You could always hand make them, but no, certainly starting with cards is a good idea.
Exactly. And in fact, there is already a project. I think it's going to launch in a couple of weeks, and we're going to help them with manufacture here in Mexico.
Cool. Are you running the campaign?
No. We just advised the structure, and we will make the manufacture and the fulfillment in Mexico.
So you guys you're sort of working towards being like a full-fledged Mexican publisher of board games. I mean, you're really... and have you started... Like, one of the things some early publishers have done is they've looked at sort of facilitating localized copies into their country, whether it's in Spanish or otherwise? Are you working with other larger publishers? The Passport, Renegade, Asmodee, or those, maybe that's too big, but those sort of mid-tier ones, or are you mostly focused on sort of locally grown Kickstarter independent games?
Well, I'm a fan of Kickstarter, so I'm more focused on the crowdfunding scene. But my partner Juan knows the official distributor of Asmodee and Game Right in Mexico.
Sure.
And they asked us to do the versions of the instructives to Spanish. So we have to think if we want to also get involved in those. But we have already worked with Game Right's game to translate them.
Well, it's good when you have board game translators who are really familiar with board games, right? Who not just a translation service, they understand the idea of turns and rounds and dice and drawing and all those key terms, and what gamers think of when they think of those words is a pretty big deal. Awesome, man. I mean, it's super cool. I think that perhaps for those living in countries that have less mature board game scenes, newer board game scenes, who feel like they're looking from a distance at all the game stuff that's happening in the States or in Europe or otherwise, what recommendation would you give somebody who maybe doesn't want to become a publisher and do all the craziness that you've done, which is super cool, but just wants to meet and grow the community in their country or in their state or in their rural town? What kind of advice would you give that person?
Well, maybe finding the right gateway games and start organizing meetups. It started this way in Mexico with the Mexico on Board meetup, and then the word of mouth will make more people to come and play those games. Organize those events. You don't need to have a board game cafe. You can gather in someone's house and start allowing people to get involved. And when you see that you have already like 15 or 20 people interested, maybe you can start doing the same model that Mexico worked on, that was asking some restaurants to receive those people on a given day of the week and a given hour. Then show them the amount of games that there are. We believe that there is a game for everyone. Everyone has a gamer inside of him or her. So and let the word of mouth spread, but find those gateway games. Catan and maybe party games, filler games, and start playing with your relatives, friends, and let them invite more people.
Cool. Well, let me ask, just, what are some of the best gateway games that are currently localized into Spanish that you'd recommend, right? Like for people in Central and South America who are watching, whatever that audience is, I'm sure Catan is, but like, what kind of party games are there that are localized into Spanish?
Well, Exploding Kittens has been a very successful game in Latin America.
What's the name? Is it called Exploding Kittens, or what's the name of it in Spanish?
Exploding Kittens too. Yeah. We're very used to play the games in English.
Sure.
So,
all right. Well, I thought I'd ask.
Other games that are very good is, I don't know if it's called the Blitz Ghost, one game where you have to pick the correct piece.
Is it called Ghost Blitz?
Ghost Blitz, yeah.
I think so. I know exactly the game you're talking about. Why? It might be called Ghost Blitz. It might be called something else. But I know the game you're talking about. It's just the fast game where you're sort of slapping the center and grabbing the objects, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
King of Tokyo. All the Spiel of Jars, like code names, Ice School.
Right.
Those ones are very good gateway games in Mexico.
Cool.
Yeah. And I use some Kickstarters. I don't know if you're familiar with 5 Minute Dungeon.
Sure. I didn't
Yeah,
do a review of it, but I am familiar with
oh,
it.
yeah. Well, that one is crazy. Everyone loves that game. And that's something I'm trying to do, to show games from Kickstarter creators, not just games from large publishers.
Yeah,
So
it's a combination. Well, especially if you can actually have some of them at, when you're helping a creator get games into Mexico, also having a bundle that gets, into your store. You probably just being, as you do your group pledge, I would recommend when you're reaching out to a creator. I don't feel like game stores do it enough. I oftentimes that conversation is just a retailer saying, "Hey, I want this many copies at this price." But for a lot of parts, I think if you said, "Hey, looking, I can help you with your Mexico pledges," this. But do you want to also send a game for demo at the caravan? And if you send it for demo, somebody will learn how to play it and demo it. I think most creators would say, "Sure." I mean, I know I would if say, "Hey, yeah, can I get one extra copy to demo with?" I think you'd probably be able to get that. So I think explaining what you're doing and that it's more than just on a shelf, because a lot of retailers in bigger stores, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but a lot of they're buying the games, they put them on the shelf, and they'll have somebody who knows what they're talking about. But it's not a cafe experience; it's a store experience. But more and more stores are doing that cafe experience where they really are driving towards really knowledgeable and friendly and engaged staff and helping people learn and play new games and introduce people. So a lot of game stores have been doing that for ages. Some are doing it more. Getting more table space is a big deal, and freeing up the table space from all the Magic players, right? Making it more open gaming. But anyway, awesome. I think.
yeah, well,
Go ahead.
sorry. We were thinking of doing that. In fact, I don't know if you remember, I once told you that we wanted to do reviews for board games, and then we realized that the review scene is already like you have a lot of competition. And with the caravan, we decided that we could do showcase of games. So we are still building the press kit for that, but we want to offer the creators the possibility of sending us a prototype, and we will showcase their game during their Kickstarter campaign or maybe before, so they can have a big group pledge from Mexico and get more.
That's pretty fun. I would imagine one of the big things is how to plays, right? A lot of people really like how to play videos, and it may be the case that there a how to play video in Spanish with the U.S. With an English-based game might be something that's popular, right? At the on site, on location, you're training your staff or the people who are playing, and you just film it. It might be something that people enjoy, even if it's a live stream, so you don't even have to worry about editing it and doing all that. It's just like, hey, we're going to talk about and play this game in Spanish, because I'm hoping I have the campaign that's the season 4 Gaming with Edo campaign, but I'd like to do more how to plays and I think live streaming, because a lot of people just enjoy seeing it and engaging with it. And I think it'll showcase, if you can do it at the caravan, like at night when everyone goes. I know you sleep there on the floor. I don't know. Well, you can use that space and say, hey, this is the store, and here's James Hudson from Druid City Games is doing some really fantastic, video content and streaming, and so he's been doing a great job with that. So awesome.
That's a good idea. Thanks.
Yeah, full of
The
random
house
stuff. Yeah, I think I covered all the questions I was thinking about. It's super, again, I think it's been really interesting to learn about all the different countries and scenes, and how they're evolving and changing. It's made me want to go around and visit and sort of travel more to see what board gaming is like in all these different areas. So maybe one day I'll be able to do that. But
Sure.
Thanks so much for being on and giving us so much insight on what you're doing down in Mexico.
No, it was my pleasure. Thank you for all the support in our projects.
Sure, man.
For inviting me here.
Yeah, keep publishing good stuff. So for everyone else, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Most importantly, play some great games. Thanks for watching. Bye.